Dear panels, acknowledge that today's nature of economy, especially regarding corporations, have been so cruel to the working class. Every product that has arrived on your hands, dear panels, or at least every product that has been produced by those corporations are oftentimes the result of industrial machines and all of its gear working and churning unstoppably on those factories. And that means that these corporations can produce even millions of packagings per day, but that means that there will be 2,000s, 3,000s, 4,000s, 10,000s, 20,000s, and even more amount of people getting layoffs per day. And this is today's condition of unregulated automation that make people getting fired, excluded from their jobs, and replaced by non-human machines. That's why we assert that a regulation is needed, and we assert it in the form of taxation. So proud to propose. But firstly, let us clarify several things to how the debate should work or what the debate is really about, dear panels. So 2 points of clarification: one, on the interest of manufacturing corporations, but also two, on today's economy condition and why taxing is needed. So firstly, the interest of manufacturing corporations. The interest of them is to maximize profit by minimizing costs and increase efficiency. This means less spend on salaries, faster or scalable outputs, and even less liability. And this is why it incentivizes them to pursue automation, because then they will significantly reduce their models, this will significantly increase their speed of productivity, but also this will help escalate them to compete with other manufacturing companies that has global impacts. So moving on to my second point of clarification, which is on today's economic condition and why taxing is needed. Corporations, whether big or small, now focus so much on this efficiency. They pursue ways to increase it more and more, including automation. Well, it is obviously for profit and money, yet this risk excluding so many workforces that even by them can only sustain their lives with these jobs that provided only by these corporations, especially in developing nations or low-skilled sector society with no transitional support or no alternative income. They pay the price of unemployment and loss of massive amounts of jobs. So how does the world would look like on our side of the house to address this through taxation? So the mechanism would be A, manufacturing corporations who relied heavily on automation would get substantially higher taxes. So the tax will depend on how much portion of the workforces are being automated progressively. So for example, corporation A automated 10% of their workforces will get less level of tax than the corporations B who automated 30% of their workforces, or corporation C who automated 70% of their workforces, for example. But also B, revenue from this tax will be used for worker retraining, public unemployment support, or even wage subsidies in areas experiencing very hard economy or if for elders workers, for example. But also C, publicly and transparently report their automation state will be an obligation for all of these corporations to the governments. So there will be no foul play, and therefore the tax can be justly applied. But also D, there will be tax incentives or credits applied to corporations that intends to dedicate CSRs. These mechanisms, then, their panels are made as a form of compensation or at least their social responsibility for companies to the social outcome they have shaped in the discourse of society. This is not a punishment, and therefore oppositions cannot blame us or frame us as if we oppose technological advancement or punish corporations for becoming more efficient, or even being hyperbole to the fact to state that we're banning automation. Taxation, then again, is not a banning for technological advancement or automation, but rather how we regulate this automation so we can create a better economical and social system, both for the companies to achieve efficiency and more profit, and also to the workforces to have jobs and support for their lives. Therefore, moving on to my arguments, I have two arguments here, the panels. A, on mass unemployment, and B, it would not disincentivize technological innovations. I will elaborate this one by one. So firstly, on mass unemployment, contextualize their panels. Factories are getting thousands of machines every day, helping them to produce daily millions amount of products. Yet every day, the scale of unemployment or workforces layoffs are increased drastically each to each day. Why is this important? Because many people sustain their lives only on these jobs that only these corporations provided, especially in low-income communities or even in unskilled laborers, in elders workers, or even in local economies that only resolve or that only depends on a single corporations or on a single industrial area. But also B, that ripple effects of unemployment is inevitable. Higher crime, increased poverty, and loss of social trust to the policies or system that the state has been applied to. This is why the this is why the burden of having automation on the majority of workforces in a single or even more multiple corporations is not just efficiency, is not just economically, but also the psychologically and even especially the social in how the discourse of the public would go on. So the mechanism of having taxation then is A, it will pressure companies to rethink the cost of automatization and the burden of tax the state will apply. But also B, this would create a safety net and this would make the companies have allocation in the sectors where there will be automation to help them work efficiently, but also to have the human workforces to still be in work or at least having support so they can catch up the technological advancement needed to help elevate this automation that the corporations has pursued. So comparatively, without tax, on the opposition side of the house, gains are concentrated, automation will happen so fast, they cannot catch up the technological advancements they needed. But with tax, profits are partially redistributed through state policy, workers are supported through training, for example, and the welfare system will be justly redistributed. So in fairness, corporations gain more by cutting workers, but they still being responsible for the human cost and the social cost they shape. But practically, this would still preserve efficiency, but even if not, it stabilizes the economy still and prevents riots, which is more important than what will indubitably happen in the opposition side. So the impact on our side, practically and principally, will be to more equitable economic transition. And this can be achieved, for example, the corporations can opt for a more gradual transition instead of directly automated the majority of their workforces. And this is why our argument wins both on the principality and the practicality. But also, let's move on to the second point of my argument. It would not disincentivize technological innovations. The context is, the problem of taxation is that this can pressure companies to relocate themselves or into other places that have better innovation climate. The opposition could further refute us and stated that the companies will flee to other countries and local economies will suffer hugely. But this is an overstatement, dear panels, on how the economy should actually regulate. Why is this so? The mechanism on our side that firms or manufacturing corporations will still automate, but gradually and with more care. So taxation, then, B, only pressures them to invest in ethical innovation. So comparatively, with tax, innovation will become a productive to society and socially conscious to what is the background condition of all the people or the workforces surrounding this corporations. But without tax on the opposition side of the house, there will only be profit maximizing, worker cutting, and will be inequality driving. But even if it's not as productive as expected and still there's discrepancy, we have avoided a very large level mass layoffs and economic hindrance. And that would still create a system that works for both, and that's why I'm so proud to propose. Thank you.